Hello, and welcome to our podcast with me, Mark, and my associate, Steve. What we do in these podcasts is look at the mainstream media and then look behind the stories, what we believe may actually be happening. This is only an opinion podcast. We don't pretend to be the news. You're always welcome to put a comment below if you agree or disagree with us or have reasons why you do disagree with us. Okay, well, I'm going to hand you over to Steve, who will say a few things which he believes are very important for us to hear. Okay, over to you, Steve.
Okay, hi there, people. In the UK, the press has still been going on about Philip Scofield and him being a naughty boy with ITV. They'll milk that story until they can get no more. You know, that's what's been on talk shows and radio shows. That's been the main comments. In the meantime, since last week, when I mentioned that the World Health Organization decided they want to commandeer the world's health, there has been certain backlash from predominant people, in my mind. And I'd like to introduce you to some of the little bits and bobs that I've found over the last couple of days. So the European Union, since then, has had a meeting with MEPs and guests about world health, you know. And this guy, Dr. David Martin, he's a biologist, PhD, has his own company. He gave a speech at the European Union. And he gave a history of COVID. You know, what really happened. He's got all the original documents, which are all incidentally public domain. If you wanted to do your own research, you'd find them quite easily with this information that I'll give you anyway, because it gives you dates and years and who's involved. So here we go. COVID didn't appear in the last 3 years. Coronavirus appeared in 1965. The first COVID appeared in 1965. And in 1966 is when the first modified COVID appeared. The US managed to modify this COVID. They say the COVID goes from bats to other animals, you know, this gain of function being manipulated by the government, you know. And it was thought that modifying COVID was a very dangerous thing. However, nobody complained about it. No government of the world decided that it was too dangerous of a toy to be played with. In 1990, Pfizer made the first spike protein vaccine. In other words, the first COVID vaccine was made by Pfizer in 1990. It wasn't a recent thing. And it was patented in 1990. And Pfizer knew at that time that the vaccine didn't work. And they said because the coronavirus at that time mutated too quickly. So, for example, when we had our COVID, remember they had the COVID, then they had the Omicron COVID, and then they had the Omega COVID. and each time the virus, it would mutate, and you get your first dose of the vaccine, and then because the virus had been mutated, you'd have to get another booster shot and another booster shot on top of that. But they knew in 1990 that the vaccines just simply didn't work. In 2002, a coronavirus bioweapon was patented. It was patented as a bioweapon. That was when Dr. David Martin went to the European Union in the first place to try to prevent these patents of these bioweapons. He said that it would become a very, very dangerous thing. That was in 2002. And that patent happened, it was done 1 year before the SARS 1.0 was spread about, when the world suffered from the SARS virus. The SARS virus stemmed from the bioweapon coronavirus that we patented the year prior. And the US funded gain of function, this process of gain of function on the coronavirus back then. And who was leading the research? Our friend Dr. Fauci. And that was in 2005. That was in 2005 when they started to do working on the gain of function. 2016, coronavirus was ready to be given to humans. In 2016, so much so that it was also made in Wuhan, in China. 2018, I don't know if anybody saw the video, but Dr. Fauci, he said in 2018 that there would be a release, either accidentally or on purpose, of the virus to create a pandemic. He said this in 2018. I've been looking on the internet for the video to post. I just haven't found it, but I know it was said. And in 2019, Moderna patented a vaccine because Moderna knew that there's going to be a release of the coronavirus on the population. And he concluded that the release of the coronavirus was for profit. Now, I reckon it was for more than just profit, because all the major drug companies, they'd make a big, huge profit. But of course, there are people in the world that needed chaos, that needed everybody to be brought down to the same playing field, making developed countries spend all the money on lockdown and, this, that, and the other. The buying, it was the governments that bought the vaccines, from the drug companies. So I think there was another agenda, not just for profit for the drug companies. One other speaker at this meeting is a Croatian MEP called Mislav Polakusic, and he declared, once again, I'll give you the link of the guy speaking. He declared the World Health Organization as a terrorist organization. He said because the World Health Organization was in on it, was in on all of this. They lied. They lied when they said that at the beginning they said that the coronavirus wasn't transmissible from person to person. They insisted that the vaccines worked and that they were safe. He said it's safer to be in the hands of the FARC in Colombia, with the drug cartels there. And he said the only thing worse than the World Health Organization was the World Economic Forum, which suggests that perhaps the two might be linked, which is why I think it wasn't just for profit of the drug companies that this coronavirus was released. I think the agenda behind all this World Economic Forum and what they want to do in the world to make a one world government has something to do with it. Exactly what, I can't say. But with all said and done, they always seem to be the same group of people mixed together, So that's a little bombshell for. Also, there were 3 British politicians who were against this treaty with the World Health Organization. We saw that on a Maya Tusi video. It was him that reported on it. Once again, links in the description so that the people, if they want to go in a little bit deeper, find out, they can catch us straight from the horse's mouth. So that's the little bombshell I've got for this week. If you're not too shell shocked,
no, Steve,
tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, it's not to me. I'll question you a bit further on these things, but yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk about Philip Scofield at all, really, here, because that's what they want us to do.
It's not important, I don't think.
No, it's. I'm afraid. Yeah, I'll just say this: there are more than Philip Scofield involved in it. You got to feel sorry for people around him, not necessarily him. Yeah, yeah, celebrities. Yes. Now, looking back here, what you said, I mean, I've heard personally. I mean, I'll disclose to the people, I have no idea before we come to these videos what Steve is about to say. So I'm the same as you. I won't say I'm shell shocked because I've heard rumors about different things about this already. And again, as Steve says, we'll put links for all the facts that Steve has said. We don't just say things on here randomly, or Steve certainly doesn't, and I don't. I react to Steve, obviously, and obviously myself sometimes. We will put the evidence down below for anyone that wants to look to then question us subsequently. Yes, now, this is interesting history. Not surprising in the fact that there are lots of tests done about different things dating back to the 60s that, well, hopefully would not be allowed today. Hopefully, or do not happen today, I should say, hopefully. And I mean, this was everything from doing quite strong drugs tests, testing with LSD, etc., nuclear tests on people on radiation to see what happens with radiation, and people didn't know. This dates back from the 50s. I mean, obviously, the biggest experiment with radiation happened in Japan in 1945. But it is not a surprising thing that there was experimentation going on, given the background of the Cold War and everything else, and given that this is the thing that we're finding about, if you like, the Allies and NATO, etc., doing tests. We do not know what other entities were up to either. So
I think, Mark, this is the first time that we've linked experimentation to a disease which is recent. Which is actual. I mean, we've just come out of the pandemic stage of COVID, and it's a bit of a. I wouldn't say it was a shock, bit of a surprise. I don't know. I don't know what the right word is at the moment, but I'll think about it. Where all this experimentation done in the 60s and 70s and 80s, going through all this stuff. The first COVID was made on using dogs and pigs, by the way.
Yeah.
This latest one with bats. But all this experimentation is linked to something that all of us, or most of us, or a lot of us, suffered with recently. You know, and that's surprising. We're talking about 60 years of experimentation before this was spread around the world.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to you. I mean, I'm sitting here pan-faced. Yeah, I mean, I won't say it's the biggest shock in the world. Okay, I remember in the 80s reading things about experiments that were happening 20 years before that. This is all linking in. And okay, we can go with conspiracy theory here, reading about economic things, about the growth of population. There were concerns. I remember there's a book in my library about it. One of my class colleagues read this book and became totally obsessed with it. This was in the 1980s. Yeah, this book was quite recent, probably late 70s, probably early 80s. I can remember it. Yeah. Yeah.
The Club of Rome, where they had the big meeting there in Rome about keeping the world population down.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I remember the pictures of the panel, bald hair guy with thick rim glasses, black glasses. Yeah. That's about just about every official in the 1970s, but yes. Yeah, it is I wouldn't say that's a revelation you just told me. You've done some digging and some research, as I said in the previous video. Yeah, you do that. That's your time. That's your job. I won't say a hobby, because I think it's an interest you have. That people like me are not going to go in that detailed. But to say I'm shocked, I'm not sitting here shocked. Given that the past, let's be honest, more than 2 years, going back past 5 years probably, all the maneuverings politically around the world and everything that's been happening, and strange things, and people being asked, populations being asked to make a decision and told they're wrong. We've all, whatever you might say, I mean, this expression is now, what's the definition of conspiracy theory? Something that's proved right 3 months later.
Yeah.
Whether or not we can actually link all this, like you said, the statements are out there. People with qualifications, which we have to go with, have said this. It's all in the public domain, so nobody can accuse, well, particularly us, of doing things. And I know there's organisations being set up the world to control opinions, let's put it bluntly. Yeah, and I'm not going to start naming them because I don't want to be picked up on it. But it is if we can do the link here, this will throw everything into turmoil, definitely. The idea that recent developments in Wuhan, the Chinese were making some money from being paid to, as you say, extend the gain and function testing, probably a lot further than we know.
It was the US that was funding it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the US were funding it.
Doing it offshore.
Yeah.
In China.
Yeah, exactly. I think the Chinese will happily do it. The Chinese have the capabilities to do it.
Receiving the money. It's all about this.
Well, of course, the Chinese are communists that are natural capitalists. We know that.
Just what I've been hearing in the air. I haven't got any solid details, but the World Health Organization is going to employ people from North Korea as part of the executive.
Of course.
I mean, I'm not frightened of North Korea or people from North Korea.
No.
However, it's just thrown out there the other day that I heard, and I've not captured any names or positions within the World Health Organization. It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't
No,
surprise.
I mean, we have to look. Okay, we have to think that WHO, the World Health Organization, is attached to the UN. Obviously, is the UN is all about spreading the love of everyone around the world, inclusion, bringing the bad boys or who we perceive as bad boys. Yeah.
I don't even know if North Korea is part of the World Health Organization or is a member of the UN. I thought it was. I thought it was one of these countries that was sort of alienated by. They keep themselves in secrecy. Nobody knows what happens in North Korea.
Well,
Apparently.
Well, I mean, the closest ally they have is China, and even China reel them in sometimes.
Yeah.
It is a. I mean, probably. I mean, let's just face it. The previous administration in the US was looking to cut WHO funding, seeing it not quite in the stronger terms that you used it as a terrorist organization, but seeing it as a little bit suspect.
It wasn't me. It was Miss Love.
Yes, yeah, Miss Love.
It
Yes,
was Miss Love who
I'm
said
not
that.
attributing it to you, but I'm trying to
No,
be. Yeah,
we know Donald Trump. He wanted to be. It could well be that he wanted to be out of the World Health Organization
yeah,
because, as president of the
mm.
United States, he already knew what we've been told about now.
Well, if you
Of
know
course,
it,
he's going to have the biggest gatherers of information
yeah,
about this. Might be the reason why he said, "I want the vaccine as quickly as possible."
yeah,
You know, you got a year to get the vaccine. He
mm.
knew that they already had it.
Operation Warp Speed. Yeah, yeah. Well, of course. I mean, he's a business person. Well, let's put it this way. Let's put it business wise. It would have made good business. You've got a problem, you find a resolution as quickly as you can in business. If you've already got something on the shelf.
But I think that Trump knew it was
Yeah,
already there.
yeah. Well, of
He
course.
would have known that because not because he's a business person, but because he was a president of the United States,
Yeah,
and that he could play. They probably told him he should play his hand
yeah,
according.
yeah.
And so he said this. Yeah, I want the vaccine. You've got
Robert.
like
Yeah.
6 months, a year to get this vaccine
Mm.
because he knew it already exists, and that will make him look
No, of course.
make
Yeah.
him look with these knees for the public because he was able to get this vaccine out in time.
Yeah. Oh, okay. He'd play up to it. I mean, yeah, he's a showman, a business. Well, no, he's a salesman, whatever else you want to put on it. But he's yeah, it's a. I mean, there's all sorts of things buzzing around. There's evidently cover-ups been going on, as we keep talking about Fauci.
Oh,
I don't think there was any love between Mr. Trump and Mr. Fauci, or President Trump and Dr. Fauci, I think we're meant to call him. I mean, when he's having them run-ins with the representative, and I can't remember the guy nearly got shot some years ago. I'm just trying to remember what his name is, who is a qualified doctor as well, or medical person.
yeah.
Just trying to remember what his name is. They're quite interesting to watch. And Fauci is evidently under stress with him because he's doing that with his pen and whatever else. Yeah, I mean, I mean, I don't know if Fauci is a black evil person we portray him to be, or he's naive, or he was generally doing something he thought was good. I really don't know what to make of it all. Whatever's happened, something's gone wrong, and he's
I think he started doing something, and you get the mad scientist syndrome,
Yeah,
and he'll go. It's a little bit like the frog being boiled.
yeah, yeah.
You know, he gets deeper into it, deeper into it, deeper into it. Only do it one more time, just one more time,
Mm.
just one more time until it's too late. You go over the top. And
Yeah.
I think he tried his hand now.
Mm.
You know, with this Wuhan leak,
Mm.
said to be a leak, which what David Martin said
Mm.
in this meeting. Was it a leak or was it deliberate?
Mm.
you know.
Well, if you're looking to do an experiment, it was a very, very badly constructed experiment, which would suggest it probably wasn't a leak. Sorry, it wasn't an experiment, wasn't deliberate. Because normally you're meant to, when you have an experimentation, you have your actual one and then you have your control to see what would happen if you didn't. To me, it was too random. To me, I mean, I don't know. We don't know the full facts. To just release something on a city, okay, it's the stuff of Hollywood. It doesn't really prove anything. There could be other factors involved. I mean, I remember some years ago, there was an experiment in the UK that seemed to have disappeared. The information seems to have disappeared where they're having everyone's mobile phones and come into contact. The idea was to experiment with it. When I was in the UK at the time, of course, I tried to sign up to it and found the system wouldn't let me in for whatever reason. It probably crashed. So they were trying to understand how diseases move and probably bringing the public in on a bit of a game with it. I don't know, because that's what it struck me as. You know, you download an app. Everyone was getting excited about apps being on their phone. You know, and come into contact, and then they would have one that was actually a virus one that would actually spread and say this person's got the virus, this person got, and work out how quickly it would spread. So there was a fear of it happening. Again, I thought, well, it's an interesting experiment. I couldn't see the purpose of it. If you get a pain, you know, we've got over the age of pandemics, or we've got over the age of things. I'm not saying it can happen. I've watched enough science fiction films to know, you know, not be shocked by it.
Yeah,
I'm joking, yeah, but I mean, yeah, I'm a sci-fi fan. But what you've just said does actually make some sense. That this thing didn't just appear out of 2 years. There's been something going on, and then having to cover it up, or it came from a bat in a wet market. Anyone with any brains would have seen through that. We did. I mean, not you and I knew each other back then, really, but yeah, I was talking to other people, other medical people who were just shaking their heads at it. I will say this, being in a country away from the UK, living through it all was quite interesting. Because we
the outside looking in.
Yeah. And what was happening in the UK and what was happening in the US. We're in Brazil, which had its lockdowns. We all know what that meant here. Yeah, I'm rather pleased. I'm pleased I was here rather than in another country. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
Yeah. I had quite a good pandemic as pandemics go, I imagine, you know, sitting on my balcony.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, Brazil's always been quite a liberal country.
Yeah.
And even if there are legislations made or decrees made, the vast majority are adhered to anyway. So people just do what they want to do anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I was a bit annoyed about not being able to walk along the beach, because I thought of all places where the virus,
Right, I tell you, during that time, I used to do walks along the promenade in Borviage. And what they decided to do was to ban the avenue, the beach side of the avenue.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah.
But the other side of the road, it wasn't banned.
No.
So you just cross the road and just
exactly
on the other side of the road, and that's when the police tell you to. Because I frequently walk past the police on the wrong side, the banned side, even without a mask.
Yeah.
And the police would just say, "No, just cross the road, cross the road."
Yeah.
Just cross the road.
They weren't interested. Yeah. I mean, I used to wear actually had, well, probably tell why not. I mean, I'll be quite honest, I did health and safety training in the UK. And we were actually told a paper mask or even a cloth mask is absolutely no good at all. You need the proper N95 mask.
Yeah, sure.
And this is against asbestos. Now, asbestos, okay, is small microscope, but well, hopefully we didn't come into contact with asbestos. If I found any on any of the sites I was on, that was an instant report and closed down until it was resolved. And then again, with anything else, you might find dust, anthrax, or anything else. Anything other than, if you like, a proper mask, even if you're cutting wood, etc., was frowned upon. Yeah, because people bring things in. I mean, we walk along the street, as you say, we're breathing in things all the time. I always thought it was quite funny though over this mask, because I used to wear it around my wrist. If the policeman told me to put it on, or if I go into a shop, I put it on. I'm not going to die on that hill, you know. That's you know, of everything to complain about, putting a bit of a mask on. In fact, I could see the benefit in some people wearing masks permanently. You know, I thought it was a definite improvement. But it's again, I thought it was strange because in a lot of voyaging, normally the path on the legal side was a lot narrower, so people were a lot closer together when you passed anyone. When you're on the beach side of Beauviagem and you're walking along the beach, it was easier to avoid people, to be 10 meters away. And believe me, I like being 10 meters away from people. Yeah.
Well, there was so little traffic at that time. We just walked in the avenue anyway. We walked on the road. That's. I mean, moving on.
Yeah. Okay.
Staying in Europe, the European Union is suffering a heavy slump in confidence in industry, in terms of economics. Germany has slipped. The GDP in Germany has gone negative, which for Germany is like the powerhouse of the economy in the European Union. And it slipped to a third of a percent negative, which normally for Germany it needs to be like 2% positive. And so Germany and Italy have shot themselves in the foot because they restricted Russian fuel being sent to Europe and made things ridiculous for the European economy. And this is reflected in some of the European nations' inflation figures, where you get some nations that are up to 20-25%.
Yeah.
And, you know, the best inflation figures in Europe is Luxembourg and Switzerland, which of course the main economy is based on banking.
Yeah.
You know, so investment banking. So there's not much industry there. But the industrial nations are suffering simply because of the price of energy. You know, energy has come down a little bit, but it's still far too high.
Yeah.
Far too high. And the US, while the US is trying to make more sanctions, even more sanctions for Russia, funnily enough, the European side of the game, stepped a foot backwards, one step backwards, and don't really want more sanctions on Russia, saying that it won't help the cause anymore.
Yeah.
And Deutsche Bank released a statement yesterday saying that there's going to be a lot of credit defaults from the corporate world because credit has been restricted. So the companies in Europe won't have the ability to pay the debts. Because normally when you come to pay your debts, you borrow money to pay your debts and then you pay it back later.
The cycle, yeah.
So there's going to be an awful lot of
defaults.
Bankruptcy.
Yeah, defaults, bankruptcies, yeah.
It is going to happen. It's going to happen.
I mean, it's 2008 again hitting us.
Oh yeah, but with a vengeance. And I think the 2008 was more a US thing than anything else.
Well, yeah, the toxic loans and everything in the US. The UK had some as well. I mean,
but in the UK, it was only an overspill of the US.
Mm.
The focal point was in
Of course,
the focal point was in the US.
yeah.
This time, what I'm mentioning here, the
Mm.
focal point is in Europe
Mm.
and
Yeah.
what Europe is doing. You know, some interesting points last week. I was mentioning
Mm.
about the SWIFT system.
Mm.
You know, is it necessary?
Yeah.
And it seems that the African nations have got together, banded together,
Mm.
and they're going to do a common currency
Yeah.
like the euro in
Yeah.
Europe. If that's the case, that's going to simplify international payments from one African country to another
Mm.
because you don't have to go through having
Yeah.
to buy dollars to translate it to the currency,
Yeah.
which is going to reduce the need for American US dollars,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know. And in Asia, they have made a system which operates just like SWIFT, but only for Asian countries,
Yeah.
you know. And that's interesting as well. Because it's what you can see if you step back and look in, you can
Yeah.
see that the different groups now.
Yeah.
You've got Europe that's been there for a long time with their
Mm.
Europe. You're going to have Africa in
Mm.
their little collection of countries with their one
Yeah.
country. And you're going to have Asia,
Yes.
and all of these will not need to use the dollar as much as they used to.
It's almost go back to gold stain. Well, not quite. It's getting to be a segregated world economically. So it's going against a little bit what probably the WEF would wish. This is how I'm looking at it now, just listening to you. I don't know. I'm not an economist, but that's how it would appear. Yes, I mean what's happening in Europe is worrying. The crash is coming. We've known about that for 2 years now. I mean, the COVID finished it off, and this Ukraine business as well. Let's call it business because anyone that couldn't see there was going to be issues with Russia and Eastern Europe at some point. I was discussing it in Europe 5 years ago when I was living there in 2017, 2018, with people from Europe. I mean, everyone's been concerned. It is a very, very, yeah. I mean, things will happen very, very quick operating world now. Crashes will happen. You can see it coming, but it will happen quite quickly, in my opinion, from what I'm reading. Yeah.
I think the crashes are going to happen all together
Mm.
and not spread out over
Mm.
a lengthy period of time. But it's
Yeah.
when that failure
Yeah.
begins. We're still waiting for that time.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, I think that people are still living on reputations
Yeah.
and not necessarily on pounds, shillings, and pence.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope it's been a good talk today. But, our time
It's
is,
food for thought for everybody, I think.
yeah. I mean, a good note to end on. I hope everyone sleeps well. Having listened to this.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll be back next week with more items and topics of discussion. If you'd like to leave any comments or if you've seen anything, or indeed, if you want Steve and myself to investigate something else, please put a comment in the comment section. We look
The
forward
links
to,
will be underneath the video.
yes, yeah, we're gonna give you all the information that we feel, well, not we feel, that we know that you will want to see. So we will hopefully see you all again next week. Okay, well, goodbye from me.
And goodbye from him.
Okay, goodbye. If you enjoyed this discussion, can you please like, subscribe and share it? Thank you.